Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Salad Bowl Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Thompson, and today we're going to be jumping into an episode where I get to sit down with a 28-year Louisiana National Guard veteran and federal employee, and we get to talk about some interesting things about life. We talk about navigating retirement, we talk about parenthood, we talk about his worldviews and what he brings to the Salad Bowl of life. I'm looking forward to jumping into this episode, so come on with me. Let's get into it for the next episode of the Salad Bowl Podcast.
Now, give me my theme music.
You are now tuned in to the Salad Bowl. You are now tuned into the...
Listen up, don't care if you about to pass out or you just getting up. You really did your thing with this one, Kevin, gotta give it up. Messages you bring and be motivation to live it up. We out here really normalizing authenticity. Can't be talking all the time, cause that mean you ain't listening. I think you look better when you smile, I see you glistening. Communication helping me to see what you envisioning. Yeah, back to the mission then. Whether you black, white, brown, yellow, or green, more can be accomplished as a team. Together the problem is never as hard as it may seem. Lot of captivating convos like Martin telling his dream. We choosing curiosity over certainty. You should certainly subscribe to this one here with some urgency. This a win. Even Cali know. You are now tuned in to the Salad Bowl.
The Salad Bowl Podcast.
It's the Salad Bowl Podcast.
You are now tuned in to the Salad Bowl.
It's the Salad Bowl Podcast.
Yeah, you are now tuned in to the...
It's the Salad Bowl Podcast.
You are now tuned in to the Salad Bowl.
You are now tuned into the Salad Bowl Podcast with Kevin Thompson.
Welcome back to the Salad Bowl Podcast. Today, I get to sit with a good friend of mine, and this good friendship has happened in a short amount of time. I get to sit with Warren Leal, and we've been working together for about a good 3 months, 4 months.
It's been five.
About 5 months.
Five
Okay.
months.
All right. It's 5 months. He's just one of those people that I felt like it was necessary to show how I think friendships grow. And though we come from different walks of life, we can ultimately still have a great conversation. And one, I just want to start off and just say, welcome, Warren, to the Salad Bowl Podcast. Man, thank you for taking the time to come sit with me. You were part of my significant people that I would love to pick your brain and have you on the podcast.
Well,
So
look,
thanks for coming.
I appreciate you having me first and foremost.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
humbled. Thank you very much. And yeah, man, I'm excited.
Yeah, man, I am too. So we're just going to dive right in, brother. And we're going to get into our first segment. We call the first segment The Harvest. That's where we kind of get to the roots of who you are. Kind of introduce you to the viewers, like who you were, who you are, who you plan to be, all of the identity pieces of like how you grace this world with your presence. I would like to start off with just a question of like, can you kind of walk us through your childhood? Like, what does that look like?
Sure, yeah. So both of my parents were born and raised in Guatemala, right? Both from Guatemala City. They knew each other there. They both moved to the States at different times for different reasons. Rekindled down here in Louisiana. I'm sorry, in New York, actually.
Okay.
Ended up getting married. I'm one of 4 children. I have 2 siblings, 2 older siblings, Julie and Miguel. I'm the third, and then I have a younger sister, Ingrid. So 2 were born in Long Island, the older 2, and then my sister and myself were born here in New Orleans, Louisiana. Man.
Nice.
Grew up, spending most of my time in La Place. That's where I graduated high school out there in East St. John. Shout out to the class of 96,
Shout
right? you know, being from Louisiana, where'd you go to school is like one of those very important questions, and you better not answer college because they're talking about high school, right?
Exactly.
It's a very traditional thing here.
You know,
in
you
New
brought
Orleans.
that up the other day, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm
That's all
going to
good.
get to your introduction, and this is the first place that I didn't realize how much your social class was dependent on your high school that you went to.
Man.
You hear that very often in New Orleans. Like, you meet somebody, hey, what's going on? How you doing, Warren? Nice to meet you. And what school you went to?
Yeah.
Like you said, they're not talking about college. They're
No.
talking about high school, but it's kind of like this placing system of like, where do you belong in this city? Do I know people that you know? And
I think it's more about that, to be
Okay.
fair. Like that's what I would chalk it up to. It's more about like, who do you know that I may know, because it's such a small city,
is.
right? That almost everybody knows everybody, or everybody knows somebody that someone else knows.
Got it.
Right? Not so much about social settings, because I mean, I think that's probably what you'll venture off now that leaving the service, and you're going to leave 20 years of your life behind you. And as you move forward, you'll find yourself in different social settings.
Yes.
And you'll realize that I think it's more about who who they can tie you to that they may already know.
Got
right?
it. So it's more about network rather than
I think so. I think
the
it's
social
more,
class of like.
At least that's the way that I look at it. Right.
Right. I mean, I was talking to my wife about this also from the Louisiana area, mainly here in New Orleans. And she was saying like, you know, sometimes when people ask if you went to, I won't say the school because I know things change in different schools. I don't want to give any school a bad rep here, but like if you go to this particular school, it's like, oh, they got some of the rough people over there. Like,
well, look, I just gave a shout out to a school that's, to be quite frank, I think it's pretty rough right now.
Really?
Right? Yeah.
It wasn't like that back in the 90s?
Man, I had such a good experience in high school, man. I did. You know, I wasn't picked first, wasn't picked last.
Okay.
Played football. I just, for me, it was just such a positive time for me, man. Like, it really was. Even through maybe the difficult things that you had to experience during that time frame, you know, at that age, at that time in space, right? Whether it be girls, whether it be, you know, friend, like just the little things that we think are so important at that moment in time. Mm-hmm. It was great. I think it prepared me for life, man. Like,
Did it?
Yeah, in a lot of different ways.
What are some of if you had to think of some of the biggest lessons that you walked away from high school with? What do you think
don't judge a book by its cover.
Tell me more.
I think anytime that you're an athlete and you're playing sports, you tend to make friendships with different teammates, which leads to you know, meeting families and then seeing how different families maneuver, how different families raise their children, and in different circumstances, right? And then you walk into someone else's space and you get to know people for who they are. And I had some teammates, man, that I met, and you know, you meet their parents, and we played ball together, probably from little league football all the way through high school. Wow. Some of us played with each other, and the other ones, there were some others that we ended up playing against, but we saw each other grow all the way through high school, right? And you know, when you get to know parents and you're young, and I don't want to say impressionable, but when you're not jaded and you haven't learned all these bad things sometimes that the world can just teach you, I took a page out of my father's book and he preached it, you know, always respect, you know, you present respect to everybody. That coupled with just walking into people's space and respecting them and learning from different households on how they do things, I think is played a big factor in like who I am today. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. I mean, that is a universal message right there. Like, respect everyone. And I feel like it's more easier said than done. Yeah. But like, if you can, I even think about my kids, like try to instill that into them early. Yeah. I think the result, especially like you're sitting here now as a product of that, I think it goes pretty well for people when you learn how to respect everyone. It doesn't matter what they look like, doesn't matter where they're from.
Agree. You know, it's funny. Someone else we work with, Tommy, mentioned one day, he's like,
shout out Tommy, man.
All right. Tommy said something when we were at work one day, and he and I were chopping it up, and he said, show me how you treat the waiter or waitress that walks up to our table, and I'll tell you what kind of person you are. Right? And I was like, I was like, that's pretty interesting. Like, I always find things like that interesting, right?
Yes.
And it's funny because I always make an effort to make eye contact, to get their name, right? To call them by their name, right? I'm snapping or like, excuse me, right? Call them by their name. And when they come to the table, try to give them their undivided attention, even though we come to a place maybe to celebrate somebody or something, right? Give them their 1 or 2 minutes that they need in order to fulfill a service that, quite frankly, we're paying for, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think that kind of goes into the point of like, I always like to call him, there was a guy that I took his class maybe a few years ago, but he said a lot of those moments, we call those like micro moments, right? Like, let me just give you a little bit of my time. Let's be able to meet in the middle during this micro moment. And that's going to carry on for the service that now you provide me, or whether we're talking about leadership and subordinates. Like, sometimes it's just stopping by somebody's desk and saying like, hey, how's your day today? Yeah. And that 30 seconds to 2 minutes is going to end up being a benefit to you later on down the line when you need something from somebody.
Agree. I totally agree. This was a topic in my household regarding child and teacher relationships, right? Or interactions, maybe not relationships, proper word, right? In some cases, I think children may build a relationship with teachers in the correct manner, right?
Right.
But my point is, one of my children was having a problem.
Okay.
And I told him, I said, the best advice I can give you right now is when you walk through that door and you provide the proper greeting, I think it could set the stage for trying to build a better relationship. Whether or not the teacher responds is something that you could feel out. But I think if you initiate that, I think it'll help you going forward in the way that you feel the communication style is being like you're receiving it.
Yeah. So it's kind of like doing your part in order to ensure that.
Man, thank you. Yes,
you're following through with the relationship.
I appreciate you simplifying that.
No, you made it very clear. I'm just paraphrasing.
Yeah.
So okay, you said you're Guatemalan. How was it growing up in Laplace with Guatemalan parents who lived in New York and actually from a different country? What that lifestyle look like for you?
Oh man, so my father was a mechanic, right? My mother worked as needed. She was very traditional household. She tended to the home. It's something that I think about nowadays, and I told you I went through my span where I didn't work, and I thought I was very reflective of the time where I would come home and something was always cooked.
Yes.
Right? I remember reading an article how important that was with just children, like being able to be productive when they get home, coming home to a home-cooked meal, right? Man, but what I remember from my childhood, and I don't know that my siblings would completely agree with me, one, I got along very well with all of my siblings. My brother, I looked up to my brother probably no different than the majority of younger brothers, right? In a family dynamic. My mother was always available, always there. And my father was just a hardworking man.
Yeah.
He'd work his job. He'd come home. He would take us to whatever practice we had to go to. Or if we were already at school, he would come watch us practice. He was present is the most important word I could probably use.
Amazing.
And then he would come home and he would work till 9, 10 o'clock at night in the garage doing side jobs.
Wow.
You know, to make ends meet or just to make life a little more comfortable for us, you know? And man, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I mean, when we didn't have practice, you probably found us in the front yard, 15, 20 people in our front yard playing basketball, pick-up basketball games.
Nice.
Right?
The community house, huh?
Man, the community house. My mom would pull up in the driveway, like during the middle of a game, she'd open the 1985 Tercel hatchback.
Nice.
And grocery bags.
Everybody helped bring them in?
You know what, man? Everybody helped bring them in. And then she'd give my brother the keys. He'd move it out the way. You know, everybody said, you know, and did it look the way she would have probably planned it? Right? Probably not. And what I mean by that is like when she pulled up, right? Would my mom expect for 15, 20 people be standing in her front yard?
Probably not.
Probably not, right?
Not. But there's beauty in that, I feel like. You know, like I would say here in New Orleans, it seems as though me and Mariah have moved back here. There's a lot of family around. Sometimes I feel like our household is like the community household. And I feel like it's very easy to, the house is not as clean as I want it to look right now because all these people are in here.
Yeah.
But like if you're looking at things like that, you're missing the entire point of what's going on in that time. Because like I think some of the beauty of it is that we're all communing together. We're all there's something beautiful happening behind the scenes as far as the interpersonal relationships growing in these spaces.
So two things on that note. One, I'm going to have to try and remember that when I have a house full of kids.
Right.
And two, I'm going to pass that message on to my wife so she could try to remember it also.
It's hard. It's hard. And especially when you're the one paying for everything. You know, I do get that aspect.
It's just that the block that I live on, which you only experienced it for like a moment in time, right? And it wasn't that environment wasn't as intimate as it normally gets on our specific street, especially with the children. As you can have, like, I have 3 kids in my house day to day. Those are my 3 children.
Yes.
Depending on my daughter inviting a friend, and then the young kids that play with my youngest son, Blaze, I can go from having 3 kids to having 9 kids in my home.
Wow.
Like in a span of a minute.
No, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And quite frankly, our house isn't that big. So that get pretty congested quick, right?
It does. It
so
does.
Back to your statement. I'm gonna try to remember that. Like,
Yeah, exercise the patience when it's needed.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's okay to be frustrated as well. But so you grew up you kind of talked about your household. It is funny. I don't want to fast forward too much, but like I've seen you around your children. We'll talk about your children a little bit later. But like I've seen you around your children and how you described your dad with you and your brothers and sisters.
Sure.
Is very much how I see you with your kids. And it makes me kind of think like maybe that's one of those inherent things that he passed down to you as far as like being present as much as you can, because I hear you, you know, we talk often and you're managing schedules, sports, things like that. And I wonder do you think that is a byproduct of possibly what you saw in your household?
I agree. I think not only is it a byproduct of what I saw, I think it's a byproduct that as I transition to, when you make that transition from being a boy to a man and understand responsibilities and understand, you understand how to be accountable, responsible, and how to show up, right? And while being accountable and responsible are both very great traits to have, I think showing up is probably just as important.
Yeah.
Right? And I think one of the most memorable things for me is that someone always showed up for me. One of my parents always showed up for me. And I didn't realize how lucky I was until one of my best friends who lived down the street from me, he was a pretty good football player, right? And his father had never seen him play football. And during his senior year, he got into an argument with his parents, and he came down to the house, knocked on the door. Him and a couple other buddies called my parents, mommy and papi, right? And he was crying. Look, my parents sat down and we were talking to him, and I was just listening, right? I'm 15 years old. I don't understand that dynamic because it didn't really happen in my household. So it's part of my socialization at this point, right?
Yeah.
And my father went to one of his playoff games, and he missed one of our games because we weren't making the playoffs. And I remember him saying, Papa, you know, my own father hasn't seen me play football. And I remember looking up in the stands, always looking for him to see if he maybe showed up. And I saw you in the stands one time. And in that moment in time, like, it hit me. Like, I was young, but it hit me. What movie was that? Message, right?
Yeah, Message.
Message. And it stuck with me. And I always told myself that when I decided to start a family, that I was going to make sure that I was present, right? I think that's why retirement was relatively easy for me in the sense of like making that decision.
Because it gave you more opportunity to just show up.
Yeah, to just show up, man.
That actually leads and kind of goes into like the next segment of your life, because back in the 90s, you joined the National Guard, right?
I did, man.
Tell us a little bit about that.
I joined the Louisiana National Guard. I remember my parents paid for my sister to go to LSU.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, God bless my sister. She liked to go out and have fun, man. Nothing wrong with that, right?
Right.
Nothing wrong, because she's come full circle. I think she's working on a master's degree now.
Oh, good for
her. Like, shout out. And then my brother decided to go to Delgado, and my brother will tell you, like, decided to play intramural basketball instead, like, nonstop. Like,
yeah, good for him.
Sure, class. We got a game. We got a game going, right? And I was always envious because he was so smart. Like, he was so smart, man. The application part was a little bit different, right? For him than it was for me. So I knew and I would hear the conversations about, you know, us paying for school and this and that. And I just made a decision to find a mechanism to pay for school in the event that it wasn't for me. So what I took away from that was maybe college isn't for me. And if it is or is not, I'm going to try to figure out a way where it doesn't put the burden on, you know, the two people that have already assumed the burden for two other children, right?
Yes.
So look, and it was one of the best decisions I think that I've made throughout the course of my life. It played a huge role in who I am now. It helped with the responsibility, the accountability, the showing up also, because you get put in positions where you have to show up for people.
You do
pretty frequently, and sometimes you're showing up because that person are dealing with their own situations, their own traumas, and it may be a byproduct or an occupational hazard of what we experienced during our time in the service.
Yes.
So I wrote a letter for one of my former soldiers. I sent it to her 2 days ago, right? She needed a character witness statement, and I sent it to her. And quite frankly, this young lady is someone that dealt some pretty rough trauma throughout the course of her life. And, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to be able to be there for her, right? And I think that's one of the biggest things that it took away. I took away from that time frame in my life.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about that phrase you just said. It was a pleasure to be there for her.
Yeah.
That is one of those things that is hard to put into words, right? It's one of those intangible characteristics that I feel that great leaders show where it brings them joy to serve their subordinates or serve the people that they're around. And I think it's interesting because like with the military, I think from the outside looking in, a lot of people expect that the military, I just need to be there for you in battle, right?
Yeah.
We even call them battle buddies for some services, right? Like, I'm just going to save you from the bullets that are coming at you. But I don't think a lot of people attribute that to how we have to be there for each other in garrison or when we're back at home or just in these organizational workspaces where it's like, hey, I need a character reference. I need a little bit more guidance. I'm losing it at the house. We have a newborn at the house. I don't know how to deal with it. What did you do? It's that kind of guidance that really helps.
I agree, man.
Move forward.
I agree. And look, full transparency, like there were mistakes throughout the course of anybody's life, right?
Of course.
I think how you bounce back from them is indicative of who you are, right? Mm-hmm. And who you choose to be post whatever mistake you encounter, right? Even as a father, even as a husband, right? Self-reflection, I think, is something that I also took away from during the course of my time in the service. And I do it pretty frequently, actually. I did it this morning where I had to reflect a tad bit and gave my wife an apology that I think was well-deserved. Even on the heels of listening to an audio book, The 4 Agreements that we discussed.
Yeah, the 4 Agreements, yeah.
At that moment in time, I didn't remember those 4 agreements. And had I remembered those 4 agreements, I probably wouldn't have had to issue an apology to my wife.
That's fair. That's fair. But the thing that I've tried to navigate is, even I talk to some people, and I think there's a facade that's out there that like there are some people out there who have it all figured out. I think that is completely false. Even some people have come up to me at work and they're like, "Oh, Mass Aren't, I see you doing your podcast," and just like they see me as this like non-human, and I'm like, no, I still mess up.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm so passionate about the things that are right because I've done the wrong thing, right? Like,
fair.
And I think it takes those life experiences to get the passion that's needed to do the job.
Yeah.
But I will say that there's a very human part of me. Sometimes I go home and I'm crabby, like sometimes I've wasted all of my interpersonal skills on other people all day, and I don't give it to my family when I get back home. And those are the things that I have to reflect on because I'm still a human.
Yeah.
And that's actually, if you don't mind if I share this.
No, go ahead, man.
It's actually one of my biggest indicators of having you on the show was something that you corrected me on. We were at work.
I don't know if corrected would be a right word.
Okay, maybe not corrected, but you gave me some very...
Maybe shed a little light.
Shed a lot of light. You gave me some very good information or feedback on an interaction I had with my wife. You and I were having a meeting in the office. Mm-hmm. We were maybe we were just bullshitting around a little bit. I don't know. We were just
a little bit of both. Right?
That's how I feel like we work. So we're talking back and forth, and I'm very personable at work. Right?
Yeah.
I got my personality on.
Sure.
And wifey calls, and I think I pick up on speakerphone maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hey, what's up, Mariah? and she's like, hey, what's going on? And she's like, are you busy? I'm like, yeah. Let me call you back because I'm sitting down with Warren and we're working on some stuff. And you got up. You were like, hey, talk to your wife.
Yeah.
Talk to your wife. It's fine.
I excuse myself.
Yeah, you tried to excuse yourself, and I was like, oh no, it's fine. Warren, come sit back down. And you still excused yourself.
Yeah.
I was like, I was kind of putting my wife on the back burner because I was putting more priority into the interaction we were having. And it was interesting when we had that follow-up conversation, you reminded me what was really important in life. You know, like you said, hey man, I just wanted to kind of offer this, but like, you know, it seemed like your wife had something going on. I could hear it in her voice. And that's one thing that I really appreciated was like you picked up on her tone.
Yeah. And
you knew how to separate work from real life.
Yeah.
And not saying that work is not part of real life, but like, man, when you told me that, for somebody who I think in my mind, at least, I cherish my family or I prioritize my wife. She's the reason why we have a family. I was like, damn, that was a hard pill to swallow for me, man. Like, I was like, damn, am I actually putting my belief system into my behavior? And in moments like that, I was like, damn, I definitely dropped the ball on that. But I thought it took a real man to bring that up to me, man, and I truly appreciate that.
Well, I'll tell you this. The beautiful thing about the establishment that I work with versus the one that you work for now is that the relationships that I built in terms of like intimate friendships were all local. Mm-hmm. We were present in each other's lives, and we didn't rotate every 3 years. We didn't move geographical spaces to where now you have a friendship that intermittently you get together based off travel plans, right? Or having to go to their time and space to go take care of some work situations. When I tell you I worked with people who I would consider friends, that if I really, really needed something, I could call. If I needed to bury a dead body, I could probably call a few people.
You need those people in your corner.
And the authenticity and the relationships that we had, or we still have to this day, were based off of that. And it was the ability to have a conversation when you were doing something wrong and be able to accept that constructive criticism or that feedback and just reflect, right? But we were honest enough with each other to just have that conversation.
Of course.
Yeah.
There's power in that, man. There's power in that. So you did some time in the National Guard, right? And how much time specifically?
So it was a little over 28 years, man.
Okay, so a little over 28 years.
Yeah.
That's not one enlistment. That's not two. Like that's some time right there. That's 28 years is a long time to spend in the military. Even as I'm approaching my 20-year mark, I'm calling it quits. Yeah. I'm stopping at the 20-year mark. Like, if you had to summarize that 28 years, which is probably hard to do because I'm pretty sure there was many different phases of it, how would you summarize your 28 years in the military?
Motivational, depressing, difficult, exciting, emotional roller coaster, and powerful. I'll finish with that one.
The second one you said was depressing, which I didn't think that was going to come in the lineup of summarization. Out of all the things that you said, it seemed like it bounced around a lot.
It did. It did, because I think everything that I experienced throughout the course of that time, that's what happened. That's what happened with me internally, externally. It bounced around a lot. My emotions, who I was when I started versus who I was when I got out, the midpoint, the peak of my career, maybe a downside throughout the course of my career, deployments, that just involve very difficult times. To be fair, right? Something that just isn't normal. It's normal in life, right? And I guess I'll just say death is normal in life. But when it's an occupational hazard of your circumstances in the situation and let's be fair, that we volunteered for,
yes,
right? It just hits different.
It does.
You know, and it sits with you different.
It does. What impact does having a wife and children or introducing a family into the military have on your service?
That is, I don't know if it's harder on us or if it's harder on our wives. We talked about showing up, right? And you spend the majority of your time showing up for the people in uniform and service. And you show up for your community because we were, you know, our main mission was to the state of Louisiana. Showing up for our citizens, making sure that the tax dollars are being utilized in a proper fashion, right? All while not showing up for the ones like for your immediate family. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's again, volunteer for it, understand the profession, but it was different when I got married and I started having children and realizing that showing up here meant not showing up here. Because before then, there was no thought process. I was a frat boy showing up for the people I got to act like frat boys with sometimes.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. That's the easy part, right?
Yeah, that's the easy part. That's the easy part.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because I was talking to a young service member the other day, and I was kind of like, especially when you get ready to retire, you get so reflective. Like you're looking back over all this time.
100%, man.
And they were asking about deployments, and the first time I deployed was in 2007 to Iraq, and I was gone from January to December. I was all of 2007 I spent in Iraq, and I was like, man, that deployment seemed so easy. Though I was out there the longest of all of my deployments, it seemed easy because it was just me. Me and Mariah were dating, but like we weren't on the path to marriage or anything like that. So it was just me. I just had to worry about me. In 2015, well, that was my last deployment. I was deployed for maybe like 6 months, and I had 2 kids and a wife at the house, and that seemed like it was the longest.
Hit different, right?
It hit different. The things that you want to see and want to be there for, even the small things like when the kids get out of school and that hectic time from picking them up to getting them to sleep, and you're seeing that it's all on your wife. You're like, damn, like it tears at you a little bit.
And as much as you don't want to say it, or I know I didn't want to say it, like there's a tad bit of like guilt that manifests within yourself. And I think those are some of the struggles I still deal with, to be fair.
Really?
Yeah. Just having a daughter smart enough to say or remind you, right, that you know, you didn't always show up.
Oh, so it comes back and bites you sometimes.
Yeah, and not like in a hurtful way, just a reminder, like you complaining about this, Pops, but
this is the environment we grew up in.
Yeah, mom did this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That part.
That's a pretty humble, like.
Well, you bring up your daughter. Can you kind of talk about your children, because you have some characters in your household?
Yeah. I do, man. So I have 3 children. I have a daughter, Brea, a son, Britton, and my youngest is Blaze. My daughter, Brea, is 15. Britton is 12, and Blaze is 8. He'll be 9 this year.
Nice.
And yeah, my daughter is smart. Fair is probably one of the most important things that is near and dear to her. Fairness, just across the board. And even the way that she views life. Extremely smart. Beyond her years. I think her level of maturity supersedes actually being in high school. Even though, like, she still has the emotions of a 15-year-old, I can't dismiss the fact that I think she's wise beyond her years, right? And not that I'm biased, but I think she's gorgeous, right? But before that, she's smart, she's athletic, she's intelligent, right? And she's strong. Like those are the 4 adjectives I think I would I would give her before I ever even talk about her appearance.
That's amazing. And before you go on to Britain and Blaze, I always find much value in you being her dad, like describing women as strong, right? Like I feel like they get so many other descriptors, you know, or if they're...
To be fair, I had to learn that.
Did you?
I was given that example. My mother's a strong woman. Both of my sisters are strong, and they're in different ways. I mean, my mother she was a strong woman. So I had that example in my life, my entire life, even till now. So, and what I mean by learn, it's learning that now I'm helping shape this human. Now, am I gonna shape this human by reminding her that she's beautiful every day? No, and I got to give my wife flowers on this, right? I got to give her flowers. My wife told me one day, she's like, I would like for you, like we all know she's beautiful, and there's enough people in this world that are gonna tell her she's beautiful. I need you to tell her everything else that she is. And that's what I mean by like learn, right? Because as a father, you just like you're proud, like my beautiful baby girl, right?
Right.
And yeah, I have to credit my wife for that.
That's awesome.
Right?
That's awesome. All right, tell me about Britton and Blaze.
So Britton, he is he's my comedian, man. The other day we were at a friend's pool, and we were playing baseball with like a wiffle ball, and he's doing all these ridiculous like baseball stances, and like and then it's Blaze's turn. He's doing all these things behind Blaze, like make him laugh. He is he's my fisherman. He's my athlete. He's my cuddler, right? He's my jokester,
Nice.
right? But he's so even keel 95% of the time. He walks into a room, and I don't know, it's something about him, man. Like he makes friends so effortlessly. Like that's, if I had to like sum him up, like he makes friends like effortlessly. And he's got two specific buddies that he fishes with that I do my best to try to help him manifest those friendships by allowing him this time and this space to spend with them, which the byproduct of that is that he spends less time with us.
Of course.
But my wife pointed out something to me a couple years ago. And as I made the decision to retire, like as a family, she's like, I need you to understand how important it is to manifest male friendships and to keep male relationships. She's like, because in my line of work, what I see is that we tend to forego that for your family in the space that your wife wants to spend in, right? Happy wife, happy life, right?
Yes.
She's like, and while there's truth to that,
There is.
you've always been good at maintaining male friendships. I want to make sure that you continue to do that as a retiree. And more importantly, I want you to make sure that you're helping our sons manifest that as well.
Yes. Yeah. That's awesome. Tell me a little bit about Blaze.
Blaze, right? Energy. Like that is the word, energy.
Energy.
And it's positive energy.
Yeah.
When it does transition to negative energy, I'm going to make an excuse for him. He's tired, right? He's got a little bit of FOMO, man.
Yeah.
He's got a little bit of FOMO.
Yes.
He definitely does not like to miss out at all.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
No, there's nothing
Sound
wrong.
like a good time.
He's a great time. He is just enamored with like flashy jewelry, fashion, loves sports, loves baseball, looking forward to tackle football. Still trying to work out the kinks on how to work hard, right? How you got to put in that work.
Of course.
Still working through that, right? But aside from that, man, like this kid will put a smile on your face, like every day, all day, like nonstop.
Nice.
Like he's a ball of energy. and he's so inquisitive. Like I feel that he and my daughter are like going through puberty together, and there's like a 7-year difference. Like
That's funny. That's pretty cool.
Man, he's just so inquisitive.
Yeah.
I'll give you a short story. What occurred a couple weeks back during the weekend? We played in that basketball tournament.
Oh yeah.
And I think I may have told you this. He stayed at one of the coach's house, a buddy Chad with his son Jack. Mm-hmm. And Jack's favorite movie is Remember the Titans, right? So he loves Remember the Titans because it's a football movie. And quite frankly, it's one of the best football movies you've ever seen. Right?
Denzel did his thing.
So I get a text, and the text says, I didn't sign up for this shit. I was like, what's up? Right? I just thought that maybe he was having trouble sleeping because he doesn't sleep out well. But he felt very comfortable, and he had no problems doing that.
This is Jack texting you.
This is Chad, the father.
Oh, Chad texting you.
The coach,
okay,
right? Jack is the son, right?
Okay.
And he says, I'm only 2 beers in, and I'm having a conversation with Blaze about the civil rights movement. Because we're watching Jack's favorite football movie, but your son wants to know why black people and white people don't get along.
Right. He's asking the real questions,
He's
right?
asking the real questions.
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That summarizes plays very well.
And then couple that aspect of who he is with it'd be at 9:45 at night. He sleeps with me and my wife. Mm-hmm. And he leans up after 6 days of like being congested. He says, when are y'all gonna take me to the doctor?
He said, enough is enough.
So in the truest form, like he's like raising himself to a certain degree.
Yes. Yeah. Isn't it crazy that happens with like I would say like our third child? It's so much different than how we raised the first one though. Like I remember our oldest Kaya, like we were just, I wouldn't say hover parents, but like we were concerned about everything. And then like it's the complete opposite for our third child. We're like, rub some dirt on it. Like
I mean,
he probably have to tag y'all in.
Enough is enough. I can't sleep, guys.
Yeah. He's like, when are y'all gonna be my parents and take me to the hospital? Isn't that what you're supposed to do?
I mean, and look, we're normally out. We're normally sleeping in my house by that time frame.
Right.
We went to bed laughing our asses off that night because we're like,
That's hilarious.
I guess
man.
you're right.
That's hilarious. So you talked about Brea, Britton, and Blaze. Of course, that is a byproduct of a partnership that you started with your wife.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about her?
Oh man, there's so much. There's so many layers to that onion right there, right? I'll give you a small fact first. We went to Westgate together and didn't know it.
What's Westgate?
Kindergarten.
Kindergarten.
Didn't know it.
Kidding.
Didn't know it till like our third date.
Dang.
Like anything in New Orleans, met her through mutual friendships. Mm-hmm. When I saw her, I was like, this woman is drop dead gorgeous. Asked her out on a date. I found out she played basketball, and I ended up getting tickets to a playoff game, right? Against the Dallas Mavericks.
Nice.
It's when Dirk played. I'm sorry, it was the Timberwolves. This when KG played.
Oh, got it.
Yep. And asked her if she'd like to go. Like I was like, she's not gonna tell me no. Even if she don't like me, she's gonna go to
loves
this basketball, right? Like so, right? And to be fair, I've probably always been like that insightful on how to get to the yes.
Yes.
Right? But smart, strong, athletic.
Yeah, you bring up basketball. She wasn't just like this average basketball player. She was
a hell of a basketball player. She went on to play college ball.
Nice.
And I think that was by way of her father was a basketball player as well. Her father played basketball at Grambling State, and then went on to play at Oklahoma City Baptist University. He went on to play, I think, in the NBA for like 2 years.
Nice.
Blew out both of his knees. And yeah, she was not an average athlete to be. She's still not an average
She
athlete.
is in very good shape.
This morning on our 800-meter runs,
Sheesh.
she, like, the gap that we had when we started versus when we finished, and she has a partially torn ACL.
Wow.
Yeah. So strong, athletic, determined.
beast.
Yeah, man, she's a beast, man.
Yeah.
Like 100%. The fact that I think she's drop dead gorgeous is like lanyap.
Yeah.
You know, it's lanyap.
Yeah, man. It's I'm sitting here, and I admire the way that you talk about your family.
Yeah.
Like, you went into detail about each one of them, as far as like, yeah, you're raising the children, but like one recognizing that it's your wife is doing the work with you as well, and knowing everybody so closely. It seems like you've gained some time back since you've retired from the military.
Yeah, and I don't want to say I gained it back, because I like to think that during my time I was always as present as I could be. Mm-hmm. Maybe on the last 10 years. And that probably took a little wake-up call also, right? The part about working with friends and having those intimate relationships with your friends who are also your coworkers, that also equated to spending a lot of time together, even after hours of work.
Yeah.
Because we enjoyed each other's company. And we'd sit down and we'd chop it up and we'd have a couple drinks. That 1 hour turns to 3, turns to 4, just because you get lost in that time. But, you know, like your average human being, a friendly reminder got sent my way.
Yes.
By way of, you know, the best decision I ever made in my life, and that was marrying my wife. Spending a little too much time. Gotcha, man.
Yeah.
So it was a process. It was a process, right, to get to where I'm at now. But I was very fortunate and lucky to have someone as strong and as solid in my corner.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear, man.
And sometimes I had to be reminded of that as well. Like
Sometimes
you
you
know,
do.
it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that, you know, maybe that we're built the way that we're built, and we can momentarily lose sight of something when we feel like, as men, when we feel disrespected,
Yes.
or you know, or yeah, disrespect is probably the only word I'm going to use, right? Yeah, we have to remind ourselves.
I think that's fair. I mean, I get reminded, not necessarily from the source from Mariah, but like sometimes I even have to remind myself. I'm like, yo, I uprooted this lady from, you know, she hadn't been outside of really New Orleans and Atlanta.
Yeah.
Like she had only been in the South, but I took her to Japan, I stole her and brought her over to Japan. We went to the middle of the desert in 29 Palms, California, and I'm deploying and stuff. She's the one that has to actually endure that location, and there's nothing there.
Right.
We took her on like duties, like recruiting duty, which was all of my time, you know, spent with 17-year-olds trying to get them to join. Sometimes it's like that reminder is needed, like, yeah, I may feel disrespected right now. And that doesn't make the disrespect okay, but like, hey, maybe there is a source of this, right?
You said it once before, man. It's remembering to give somebody the grace that's needed, right?
Yeah.
During a relatively recent job interview, the one that I'm transitioning to, I think I said it in there, and it's they asked me a question, is, you know, if you had to say something positive about yourself or one of your best qualities, what would it be? And what I'm about to say is something that I have to remind myself and do better in my house. And I kind of low-key get mad at myself that I have to remind myself to do it in my house when I do it so well at work. And that's meet people where they're at, right?
Yeah.
I do it so well at work. I think I feel like I've always, throughout the course of my career, I've always had that ability, which, you know, because I've always leaned to my interpersonal skills as my strong suit. it boggles me that I just don't apply it at home so effortlessly, right?
Yeah,
So-
I'm in the same boat, brother.
Yeah, man.
I am in the same boat as you're saying, and I'm over here like, yeah, that applies 100% to myself as well.
It's crazy. It really is. It really is. The people that probably deserve it the most.
Yeah,
Like sometimes
don't even get it.
Yeah, sometimes you catch yourself not giving it to them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And as I sit here, I'm like trying to dissect it in my mind in real time. I'm like, is it because I don't have it? That's not it. Is it? Am I squandering my interpersonal skills throughout the day with people who don't deserve that from me, to only be left with nothing to give the people who do deserve it from me, or
maybe the people that need it from you, right? Because of the profession and your title versus, yeah.
Yeah, man. Thanks for being transparent on that one, man, and the vulnerability
it's tough, man.
behind sharing that, because I think this is the value of conversations like this. Is like,
Yeah, agree, man.
we don't have it figured out. Actually, well, one of the Ruben, he was on one of my previous episodes. I asked him a question. He's like, you know what? I don't know, and I'm okay with that. Like,
Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah,
I saw that one.
Yeah, man.
I saw
and
that one.
He's an awesome dude, but like
He was comfortable.
he was very comfortable. Ruben's awesome. Shout out Ruben.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much value behind that approach. That's not saying like you're not willing to find out or anything like that, but
Yeah.
like maybe I'll explore it a little bit more. But if I don't know the answer, it's not the end of the
Yeah,
world.
agree.
Yeah.
Agree.
So this is what we're gonna do, man. We're gonna move to our next segment.
Okay.
Our next segment, we call it the toss up. This is
Okay.
the little game that we get to play where we just get to ask you some questions that helps us find out a little bit more about you.
Sure.
And your worldviews, your viewpoints on how things work.
Fair enough.
What I do every episode is that I have a number of questions in this salad bowl in front of us right here. And
Pick your words wisely right here.
yeah, right. So there's some narrative behind this one, and I'm gonna go ahead and expose it because there are so many people who are judging me about this. I've gotten at least no less than 4 to 5 calls about the words that I chose when I first introduced this segment.
And your dad was on set.
It was my dad who was on set, and as he reached into the bowl actually before he reached into the bowl to grab his first question, I said, yeah, we're gonna toss the salad, and I paused, knowing that like those words probably aren't gonna come out as smooth as I thought it was gonna come out. But my good friends and the people who care about me, the first thing they say about the episode, they're like, Kev, really? You just trying to toss your dad's salad? So I'm setting the record straight now. We're not going to do any of that, but we will play the toss-up, and you will pick questions from the salad bowl.
Fair enough.
We're going to do 5 questions. What I ask that you do is just grab one, and then you can hand them to me one by one. You'll
Okay.
answer the questions. They're usually like either-or questions, and then maybe I'll ask you a little bit of the why you chose either-or.
Okay.
All righty? You can
enough.
grab your first question.
All right.
All righty. Here we go. First question for the toss-up is, would you prefer your ancestors' wisdom or future generations' hope?
Future generations' hope.
Why is that?
At the core of who I am, I'm an optimist. I don't lose faith in people. And back to the fundamental thing that I told you was instilled in my home, and I think helped me pave the way for like my career and who I am before you today, and that's respect, right? I'm always willing to sit down and regardless of perspective, to listen, to hear it out, and to try to put myself in other people's shoes. Not necessarily to agree, but just to understand, right? And that's with the hopes of at a minimum, 2 people that might just have different views, understanding that by conversing, like we could bridge a gap, maintain a friendship, and just because you view something a certain way and I view it differently, doesn't define our friendships. And I've actually told quite a few people this throughout the course of my lifetime. If you and I disagreeing on something, or me telling you something and you getting so offended that it ruins our relationship, well, maybe we didn't have one to begin with.
That is fair. Yeah. And I see that so much. People are like so willing to, throw everything off the table and say, hey, this thing is over. all based off of a certain ideology or a certain comment. And usually we struggle at even conversing about what the issue is.
Yeah.
But like, you're right. If we can't fix this small thing that's in front of us right now, then maybe we weren't meant to be friends. Or one thing that I've had to learn in my life is like, maybe this friendship was only for this season, you know, like, and that season could be over.
And you know what, man, that's a very valid point. That's something to keep in a memory bank, like to remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. See, you already got through the first question. That was pretty easy. Pretty easy. A lot of people, my last guest, she was like, oh, I'm so intimidated. I don't know. You know, this is the part I'm scared about. I'm like, these questions are easy. Like, nothing to worry about. All right. You can go ahead and grab your second question, brother. Right. All right. The second question on the toss-up. Would you rather be judged by your intentions or your impact? That's a good one.
Ooh. That's a good one. I'm going to say my intentions. And I think everybody's afforded the opportunity to make mistakes. And I think that's why I chose that. We don't always get everything right. We don't.
Right.
Like that, at the end of the day, that's where our experiences come from, right? Either getting things right or getting things wrong.
Of course.
And I think the intent, and I think that's where most things go wrong, right? When people have intentions and it necessarily doesn't pan out the way that it intended to. And I think that's when people deserve a little bit of grace.
I feel like that's a recurring theme of some of the things that we've been talking about is like giving people some grace, you know, whether it's behind their intention and even the impact. One of the hardest things that I feel like I've dealt with in my professional career and in my personal life is when I intended things to be like so good, but they turned out so darn bad. Like where I'm like, oh, that was not how I intended. And if it was only based off my intentions, things would be great. The responsibility or the accountability part is the impact, and that doesn't always go so great. That's the hard part to deal with.
I agree with you. And, you know, before we started this, we spoke a little bit about, I spoke about my parents a little bit, right? And then we transitioned to, had a conversation about my wife's having an MRI today. But that relationship there, like trying to, for me, knowing that we're going to be in the same space and time and just wanting to like please everybody. Because at the core of who I am, I'm a pleaser also, right? I know that about myself. My intentions versus the impact or end result, right?
Yeah.
Could be different. And I think the one thing that I can appreciate from my wife is that I could have that discussion like, these were my intentions, even though this is what occurred. And she's always open to like hear that, right? And understand that perspective, right? And quite frankly, provide me like a course of action that would help the situation, so I wasn't so concerned about let's just say her feelings.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. It's something to be said about the ladies that we love, man. I've heard my wife use this term, being a soft place to land.
Yeah.
And I guess it goes back to the grace thing, but like it really does go far, because even if the impact does come off screwed up or it didn't land where we wanted it to land, for you to be able to go to your wife and say, well, these were my intentions, and her to take that into her considerations, you know, I hope a lot of people can take this message and try to apply it to their situations, relationships, because I think it usually turns out a lot better when we're more graceful with people's intentions, rather than the impact of what happened.
Agree. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, man.
Yeah, man. All right, that was question number 2, brother. You got 3 more. Are the Falcons better or the Saints? I'm joking.
I purposely wore a New Orleans shirt, memorabilia, so it would be on your show.
Right. I was like, I know that is not the right question to ask in this city. All right, the real question for question number 3 is, would you rather let your pain define you or let it transform you?
Transform me. I think I'd want it to transform me. So, man, I'm gonna say it a lot, and as I say it, it provides. I think I've had 3 reminders already. My wife was having a conversation with my children, and explained to them that it's important for you to have a relationship with pain. Yeah, and I was like,
In what context are we talking? Are we talking like sports, just pain in general? Like what?
both
Yeah.
emotional and physical pain. Like you have to have a relationship with it, right? Because one could be like preemptive to the other. Like you could have pain in your knee, which then leads to an emotional pain because you feel like you're letting your sports team, your team down, right? So having a relationship with pain allows you to reflect and figure out how you're going to go forward, right? And I think anybody that does any type of self-evaluation on themselves and or is a role model or a parent or understands that other people rely on them are always going to want to come out of any situation better. And that's what I would want. I would want whatever pain in my life to propel me into a better position or into just a better version of myself.
I like that. Great answer, dog. That's a great answer. Yeah. Relationship with pain. I feel like that is the crust of like getting through life,
Yeah.
Like you said, like it's not just sports, it's not just work. Like having a healthy relationship with pain is definitely, I would say, like the people who are most successful probably have a good relationship with understanding that.
It's exactly what my wife said. Some of the most successful people in this world have a very good relationship with pain, whether that be physical or emotional.
Yeah, that's a quote that's gonna make it on a board somewhere of mine for sure. All right, moving on to the next question. We only got 2 more questions left. All right, here we go. Oof. All right, this is a good one. Would you rather forgive yourself or ask for forgiveness?
I think I would rather ask for forgiveness.
Why is that?
It goes back to the previous question. I feel like they go hand in hand, right? If I have to forgive myself for something, that means that I've caused myself some pain. And no different than I feel I need friendly reminders on the first world problems that I have.
Of course. Yeah.
Right? With the magnificent spouse that I have in my life. And it's so easy for me to lose sight momentarily, that time and space, that day, those 2 days. Learning how to forgive myself provides that reminder of where I don't want to go back to, where what I don't want to replicate or I don't want to repeat, right?
Yeah.
Giving the validation of forgiveness from whatever source, whether it be a person or that I know that I don't know or a group, I think that would be a step in learning how to forgive oneself.
Yeah. I think there is some value in the validation from, let's say, for example, use the example of like if I hurt somebody. Yeah, I can forgive myself, and that's an internal battle that I would have to overcome, which is probably necessary for that process. But like ultimately, I mean, man, the courage that it takes to even like if me and the wife or me and somebody, a friend or something like that, and I know I've done something wrong, like to go back and acknowledge it out loud, that's the hard part.
Yeah.
Right. Like to lean into that conflict and to say like,
I do it pretty regularly with my children.
That's probably one of the hardest places to do it.
Man,
Right?
I've done it on the drive to school in the mornings, and apologize for maybe coming out of character during a time where I was agitated, and while frustration may have gotten the best of me by way of my children's actions or lack thereof, right? When we're trying to get to an end goal, right, and finish off the day, and just maybe handle it maybe not necessarily the best way.
Yeah.
Right. I've gotten in the truck and turned the radio off and just simply told my children, like, I just want to let y'all know there's no blueprint to parenting.
Not at all.
And yesterday wasn't my best day. That's not an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving you a reason, not an excuse. Understanding the difference between those two. And I want to apologize for the way that I acted.
Yeah.
Right. And all I can ask you is for you to accept my apology. Right. And understand that throughout the course of our relationships as we go, like, I'm going to make mistakes no different than you're going to make mistakes.
Right. Yeah. Never have I ever, or never did I ever think that part of parenthood was apologizing to your children, right? Like, before I got into this whole thing, but knowing that I'm still figuring it out myself, that I am going to mess up, and I got to apologize to the little ones that were entrusted to me. Like, there's a pressure of like feeling like you got to have it right.
Yeah.
But for you to have the vulnerability or the safe space to be able to tell your children and model healthy behavior of saying like, hey, I'm sorry, I messed that up.
You know, I like the way you said that, model healthy behavior. Like, I think I'm about to remember that, to let them know that, like, that moment in space, like, I was not modeling healthy behavior.
Yeah.
So, because we talk about model what you follow, right? Maybe to provide them an example of the ability to be accountable for myself, reflect, and try not to repeat.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a little bit of the generational wealth when it comes to our behaviors that we pass on to, or we attempt to pass on to our children.
Yeah. Fair.
All right, man. I like that. You got one more question, brother, and this ends the toss-up. All right. The last question of the toss-up for Warren is, it's a good one. Would you choose to assimilate to survive or rebel to be seen? I feel like that's a tough question for a military person.
Yeah, man. And everything in me says assimilate to survive.
Okay. Tell me why.
I don't do anything to be seen.
Yeah.
Right? I do things because I want to. Not necessarily because I have to, right? I make a conscious decision. I make a choice to go to work, right? I made a choice to join the military. I made a great choice in choosing my spouse. Maintaining those, excelling in those, I think equates to like surviving, right? Because I think that's what we're doing now. Right? We're living life, like we're surviving, right?
Of course.
You build good relations with good people, right? Like, I consider that surviving.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Man, I think that there's also value in something that we make a negative thing at times, but like there's value in the code switch, right? Like, if there was a 3-year-old in the room right now with us, I probably wouldn't cuss as much, right?
Sure.
That's me code switching or just being able to identify the area around me. It's not conducive to curse words because there's a 3-year-old in here, right? But I feel like the thing about assimilation is like, hey, you know, it may be appropriate to assimilate. I mean, being in the military, we've had to assimilate to a certain extent.
Very, very much.
And I think that the counterpoint of what this podcast is actually about is like, yes, there is a necessary level of assimilation that's needed, but like, don't lose your authentic point of view.
Correct.
Don't lose who you are.
Correct.
Just be cognizant that you may have to, how do I want to put it? You may have to adjust based off the environment around you.
Agree. And look, I think that's a very like, I think that leads to like someone's interpersonal skills and ability to adapt, right? I think those two kind of go hand in hand.
Yes.
And like my best example for that, and I actually used it the other day throughout with our workout group. My 8-year-old, like he has to assimilate to what we and my wife are trying to manifest in our home.
Okay.
And he just wants to have a good time. Like at 9:50 at night, right?
Yeah.
When it's time to go to bed, right? And when you lay him down at 9 and he's still doing flips at 9:30, right? And he just tells you, like, as sincere as could be, it's like, you just don't understand. Like, my brain just doesn't turn off like yours.
Yeah.
So how do you get your child to assimilate, but also not lose that edge that they have? Because that edge that they have might be what actually propels them into success in life.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And we got to be careful with that too.
Very, very, very careful. Like I parent all of my children different. And, fairness isn't something that we're going for.
You're right.
But is it ever so important in my home with my daughter?
Exactly.
Right? Like,
exactly.
I
think it's funny because, like, this is a great conversation because in being fair, we're not shooting for treating everybody the same way.
Correct.
Right? Because, like, usually this is where equity takes part. Is like, you have to meet people where they're at. You said it earlier. You have to meet people where they're at. If I'm meeting you at the same place I met your brother at, this happens in my house often, right? My middle daughter would say, like, I would make a correction. She's like, well, you didn't say that to KJ. And KJ is my youngest son. And I said, well, do you want me to start treating you like KJ? Do we now need to back up your bedtime right now to match KJ's? Because if we're shooting for sameness around here, I doubt you want to be treated like a 5-year-old when you're 12, right? So, like, I don't think we're shooting for sameness, but the fair can be different sets of standards that you apply to different people.
Of course. Man, I wish that I could articulate it that way when I'm in that moment in time.
Usually it's just rage at that point. You're like, how dare you?
Oh, man.
Nah, yeah, but that's fair, man.
That's something that I'm still working on.
we are all working on it.
Oh, man.
And the way that I'm communicating it, I don't want anyone to think out there or in here that Kevin's got it all figured out, because I don't.
Look, and I don't know how this episode is going to turn out. All I can say is that I don't have it figured out either.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
I don't.
I think that's the name of the game is just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that wraps up your 5 questions on the toss-up.
All right.
We got through that segment, man. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next segment for the Salad Bowl podcast. We call this the mixed ingredients part.
Okay.
This is where I kind of get your live view on a certain topic that I've picked out or predetermined before we started. And I know just based off of our conversations that you've done a lot of traveling. And I kind of wanted to explore, like, how do you see traveling being a benefit to who you are on a daily basis? And I also wanted to kind of explore, like, the differences between traveling by yourself and traveling with a family as well.
Oh, man. My wife always talks about how fortunate I am when I travel, because it seems like everything always goes my way, right? As opposed to when we travel as a family, like, we end up having hiccups or something actually surfaces that, it could be more on the con side than the pro side. But yeah, I mean, I've done a little bit of traveling, man. I will say that I think it's important for me. I feel that it's important for my children to understand different cultures, and to understand just the differences throughout different countries, right? And we talked about it before, right? Would you assimilate? And I equated that to surviving.
Yeah.
Right? And having a level of respect when you walk into someone else's space, right? So all that to say, I think traveling can be extremely beneficial for me and my family, so my children can be exposed and to understand that there's just more out there.
100%.
Right? There's more out there.
Do you get more? So, like, traveling, especially with family, at least from my experience, can be somewhat nerve-wracking at times. Do you feel like what's your best part of the family trip? Is it the getting to the airport and like the legs to get to the place, or is it the actual enjoyment of the place, or just the full experience? Like, what break down for me? What do you enjoy out of the family trip? Not saying that you don't enjoy anything out of it, but you know.
My favorite is enjoying the space that we're going to, like being there already. Getting there is my least favorite.
Yeah.
And then leaving there is my second least favorite.
Right.
Right? But like experiencing the space. And when you say traveling by myself, right? When you travel by yourself, things are just easy.
Yeah.
Like there's no other way for me to put it. Like it's easy. Like when no one is reliant on you and and you're not depending on anyone other than the airline and the pilot, and I guess maybe take back a little bit, right?
Right. The room being available.
But I don't have a responsibility. I'm not responsible for anyone but myself. Easy, man.
Yeah. It's funny because like I feel like I'm on the fence, right? Like I travel a lot for work.
Yeah.
And you know, I feel like I'm on the road at least twice a month on maybe like a 4-day trip or maybe a week or so. But though it is easier to travel by myself logistically, I find myself getting to locations and I'm like, I don't enjoy it because I don't have my family with me, right? Like, I'm like, everything I do, I'm like, man, it would really be cool if Mariah saw this with me. Like, I was in Chicago not too long ago, and I went to go see the little bean thing.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there like, oh, yeah. And it's just not the same if I FaceTime her, and I'm like...
And I'm going to agree with you
because
we took our kids to the bean thing, and we had a great time.
I'm sure.
We had a great
city.
time. And to your point, Kevin, like I think that's something that me and my wife share, is that while traveling alone is easier, I would much rather have my family with me as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a byproduct of years of not having them with me when I did travel. But you know, and maybe it makes me feel like it would be the less onset of additional guilt, right?
that could be that.
Right? But I'll say all that to say, like, we do share that in wanting to have our children present. You know, even when you go from state to state, there's differences, right? And for the children to understand that, you know, maybe Louisiana isn't for them. Maybe it is, right? Maybe Canada's for one of them. Maybe, you know, maybe California's for, like, who knows, right? Maybe Texas, because if they want to continue to support, like, children are going to have to make those decisions. And I feel like the more you expose them in terms of, in terms of travel, I think they'll have a bigger memory bank to pull from to say, you know what, I want to try this.
I like that.
You know?
Yeah. What has been your top location, like out of all the vacations, family vacations, or just, you know, you traveling alone, what has been the number one location and experience that you've had that takes the cake?
So I'm gonna give you two answers.
Okay.
When I traveled by myself, I went with my aunt. Coincidentally, we talked about Chicago. They live in Chicago. My uncle Alberto and my aunt Magdalena, she is from Mexico, and she's from Guanajuato. And it's I had the best time. It was 8 or 10 days. We saw the pyramids. We saw the mummified bodies in throughout caves. Saw the bullfights, the rooster fights. And I think I mentioned before, Vicente Fernandez's son, who's a huge mariachis singer. His son performed like an intermission of the cockfights. It was amazing. The sight was beautiful. The fare was beautiful. As a single man, like the women were beautiful. Like everything, like the hospitality, the food was amazing. Hands down, favorite spot.
Nice.
Collectively as a family, our travels, we enjoy skiing, right? But Montreal has been our favorite trip collectively as a family.
Really?
Yeah.
Everybody can ski, or?
Everybody. So Britain snowboards.
Okay.
Brea skis.
Got it.
And from time to time, she finds herself on a slope that she doesn't belong on. She makes an urgent call, and we got to walk her off the ledge, and she gets down and she decompresses from her mistake. but reflects on the fact that she just accomplished something, right?
Right.
Not the way that I would do it ever, like in my life. So kudos to her.
So I've never been to the ski slopes. Like I remember we went to Big Bear when we were out in California, but like we didn't ski. What about Montreal was the...
So we went skiing in what's called, I think I'm gonna say this right, Mont Blanc, right? And it's a mountain about 40 to 45 minutes outside of like downtown Montreal. Beautiful location. My wife did like a fantastic job picking everything, even though it's like the Airbnb that we stayed in within like driving distance to the mountain. And the slopes were just beautiful. One thing my children mentioned, and it's something that I didn't pay attention to it. I knew it was there. I knew it was present. Like there were just people, like a lot of people talking a lot of different languages.
Really?
Yeah. And like my kids just picked up on it.
Really?
They did. They picked up on it. They were like, Papi, Mommy. It's like every time I turn around, someone's speaking a different language.
Wow.
And I think that's one of the pleasures of like exposing them to different like cultures and countries for nothing more than that, just that simple understanding.
Yeah.
Exposure.
Yeah.
That's it, you know? And like in most other countries, people speak more than one language.
Yeah.
Like English is a lot more universal in other countries now than when I would go to Guatemala every summer growing up till about the age of 12.
Wow.
My mom, we'd all pack up with my mom. We'd all go to Guatemala, and that's what vacation was for us, right? We go to Guatemala. We visit family, and it's funny because throughout my socialization, that's how I define vacations.
Yeah.
The first time we went to Guatemala, my wife was like, "We're not going to spend our whole vacation like visiting family, are we?" And I had to like put things in perspective, like. That's a very valid point. This is just what I do. Like this is the way that we roll. We go to Guatemala. We visit all the family, right? So, needless to say, we did not do that.
Of course,
I hosted a dinner. I invited all the family. They came, and we had a big old family dinner at a restaurant.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But then we went down to Montreal proper, and we spent 3 days in Montreal proper. And we walked everywhere or took public transportation. Really? Like from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
Really?
It was like if I had to like explain it, it was a little bit of New Orleans, a little bit of Chicago, a little New York.
Really?
Like all rolled up architecturally, like one-way streets. It was just, man, it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Do you remember what time of year this was? Was this?
Yeah, it was during Mardi Gras.
No kidding.
Yeah, because unlike some locals, for Mardi Gras,
you leave.
Yeah, we leave.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand it, especially the people who aren't from Louisiana. And that's something I've had to learn since I've been here is like a lot of locals don't stay in town for Mardi Gras. They don't want to deal. They don't want to deal with the madness, or they've done it so many times. They're just like, yeah, I'm gonna go do something else. Yeah. That's awesome. So Montreal, that's definitely going on my list. Probably the top of my list of probably the lineup of vacations that we'll probably have ahead of us.
And I'll let you know if we go. So we're going to Costa Rica this summer.
Oh, I hear good things about Costa Rica.
Yeah, so we're going to Costa Rica this summer. So I'll let you know if by any chance Costa Rica trumps.
Yes.
Right.
Well, now that actually the best, I'm very intrigued. What was the worst trip that you've ever been on?
The worst trip I've ever been on. Oh man, this is tough.
Probably a deployment. I'm just joking.
100% a deployment. Twice.
Right.
Man, this is tough. Kevin, I don't know if I can answer this, to be honest with you. I think I'm at to sum it up to a deployment. You know, I probably went to Mississippi one too many times throughout the course of my and look, not to down, like nothing against Mississippi. I'm just saying, like, my work took me there a lot. Like,
yeah, right? So we just played in that basketball tournament in Mississippi, and
how funny was it the experience that Giannis had there?
Yes,
right.
I will say that I think that in my lifetime, in my experience, I've always given Mississippi and Alabama a bad shake because I'm just like, I don't. Actually, when I used to drive from Atlanta, me and Mariah used to drive from Atlanta to New Orleans, or we're going back. Like, I wouldn't even stop in those states because I was just like, it's Mississippi.
Dude,
but there are some spots in Mississippi.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
There are some spots in Alabama that actually throws off my misconception of those spots.
And look, I would call it a misconception because, you know, when you expose yourself to more of it, you realize like Alabama's kind of got it going on.
They kind of do. They kind of do. They just need a sports team or something like that.
They have one. They'll tell you they have one. The Crimson Tide. They'll tell you. They don't want anything to outshine that. Like, you know,
that's probably why they don't have an actual sports team or like an actual pro team because that college does well down there.
I think they do have a UFL team though.
Okay,
Alabama, Birmingham.
Oh, actually, I have seen them play.
Yeah, I think the whole UFL actually plays out there. I may be wrong though.
Okay, gotta have some kind of money circulating through there. Yeah. All right, well, that kind of wraps up our mixed ingredients segment of the podcast. We're going to move right into our next segment. We call it Dressing It Up. And this is where I kind of want to talk about you in present day, current day.
Okay.
We know that you retired from the National Guard. You were working with the federal government for a little while.
Yeah.
And it seems like you've found your place as far as like where you're headed to. Can you talk to us about where you currently are? And I guess why I ask these questions as a preface is like, I think there's an important part to be said about documenting Warren at this moment in this time, right? At your age, on the 14th of May in 2025, what does life look like for you, and where do you see yourself heading right now?
Well, man, I appreciate that. But it's still a big, I don't know. I had this, just so you know, I had a conversation with a buddy before I came here. And he's someone that I called to check up on him because I do that frequently with people in my life. If I find myself driving somewhere with time, I'll pick a random friend and just call, check in on them. So don't be surprised if you get a random call from me, right? But this particular friend is going through a transition in his life, and I make an effort to call him at least once a month. What he provides in return, right? This is all like natural. Is a sense of like spiritual guidance for me, right? Something that throughout the course of my life, I haven't been very good in terms of discipline, right? And in talking with him today and explaining the transition that I'm going through now from leaving the federal government to go work at where I'm going to work now, I still don't know.
Yeah.
To be fair, like I still don't know. It's so easy to define yourself when you're working for, when you're working for a government agency because everything is defined for you.
Yeah.
But I would say that I left the organization after 28 years, kind of a jack of all trades, but a master of none. Yeah. I am excited about moving into the organization I'm going to work for because they're really big on the culture that they manifest there, right? I'm excited about the amount of time and effort that they put into cultivating the culture in this establishment.
Yeah.
And to see what it has in store for me.
Yeah.
And to see how it benefits me professionally, personally, and how that bleeds over into coming home and still being a father and a husband, right? And a role model to my children.
Yeah.
And if it provides a better space for me, I think the one thing I can say about the transition is part of the reason I made a transition is that the job that I left provided a lot of conveniences for me, a lot of conveniences that complemented what I want to do with my children. What I didn't account for was the purpose that I needed fulfilled for myself just as a man. I didn't account for that.
Yeah.
And it's something that I don't want to say I'm struggling with. I'm just trying to find.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to call it a struggle. I'll call it, an adventure, a mission.
Yeah.
Like
Challenge.
A challenge. That's it. You know,
Yeah.
a challenge. So I look forward to the challenge. I look forward to the job, what it has in store for me. Because I'm walking into a place where they already have a vision for me also.
Yeah.
Like and they made that clear throughout the interview process. They have a vision for me. And I think with someone having a vision for you, and they even said our vision may end up going elsewhere.
Right.
But what we know is we want good people and we want you.
Yes.
Right? So when you walk in and someone has a vision for you, I think that helps.
Yes.
That helps you at a minimum to know, like, okay, I'm gonna start off with a purpose here.
Yes.
Whether or not that's the purpose that I'm looking for,
Yes.
it's a purpose. And then from there, you could cultivate it, right? And you could work
Make
on
it your own from
Yeah,
there.
that's right. I tell you, I probably had one of the best interviews I've ever had. And let me rewind by saying when I interviewed for the full-time position when I first started with the Guard, it was in uniform in my Class A's in front of a board. I knew everyone on the board. And one of my really good friends, who's a retired sergeant major, when we finished, he looked at me and said, "That's the worst fucking interview I've ever been a part of in my life, Warren."
It was that bad?
And I'm sorry to drop the F-bomb on your show, man.
You good.
While he was smoking his cigarette and laughing at me and ash was falling, like, I mean...
Was this interview, did you think that it had went well, or did you know you bombed it?
I knew I bombed it. So as much as you think a panel of 5 E7 and above is going to be easy because you know them all,
Yeah.
you can't account for the mischief that had already taken place.
Yeah.
The funny moments.
Right.
The encounters you've already had with them to all manifest while you're trying to explain a 5-year plan.
Exactly.
And what you really want to say is, do you have a 5-year plan?
Like, we're so familiar with each other. I know behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
while I thought it was going to benefit me, it did not benefit me. The fact that I'd already established myself with them over the course of like 9 years as a part-time guardsman was what landed me where I landed. And I was able to fulfill my career there, which I enjoyed, man. Like,
Nice.
it was great, right?
Nice. So you gained some skills on the interviews once you left and gone through a couple of different interview processes. Or
Thank you for bringing me back. The point is that the interview was nothing but full transparency on where I am in life, right? And what I need from a company.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's good to hear that there are companies out there looking for authentic people. Because I think sometimes when you think about the workforce, we just think about the worker bees.
Yeah.
But like, these people have stories. These people, there are experiences that make up these people that will either limit how much they work for you, or will go balls to the wall and do everything for you based off of how you build your team and how you build your culture. Like
Man,
what you're about
look,
to do.
I have to agree with you. And you know, I had to pause and I had to make it very clear that, like, I'm gonna answer your question, and I don't want it to sound like I'm making demands. I'm just telling you what I'm looking for in a company.
Yes.
Right? And what I want a company to bring to me personally and professionally. So it was a fine line, and not having already having a job was one thing, and 2, kind of being a retiree. It's like, I don't know. It just lessened the burden. Like, I'm here. I'm sitting here because I want to be sitting here.
Exactly.
Not because I have to be sitting here.
Exactly.
And that weight being lifted, it just it made it so much easier to communicate.
Yeah.
And while transparency is always something that that I've always provided throughout the course of my career, like anywhere that I worked, and I would like to think that everyone that I worked with felt the same way too, right? It was the most beneficial thing throughout the course of the 2-hour interviews.
Yeah. I feel like there's also an aspect of that of you knowing your own value as well. Like, you know, through your experiences, whether it's with the Guard or with the federal government, you're bringing something to the table. So I think that gives you more clarity around the things that it's like we've talked about this before, but you're asking about the party that you would be getting invited to.
Sure.
Like, hey, I know what I bring to the table, but like what y'all got going on,
That's right.
What can you do for me?
Yep.
And I think that's something that shouldn't get lost on people who are out there searching for jobs. If you
Of course.
do bring something to the table.
I think it's a matter of how you present it, right?
Of course.
You want to come across as someone that's arrogant, that's making demands, or do you want to come across as someone that's being transparent and say, look, this is where I'm at in my life.
Yeah.
This is what I require from an employer, right? Because this is where I'm at in this time and space.
Yeah.
Right. And I intend on being present because it all revolves around quality of life.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
Quality of life. And I was very fortunate for the owner to be in the room.
Nice.
And for the owner to like receive my message and say, if very successful company, but if you're going to be resentful when I walk out at 3 p.m. to go pick up my children and finish my last hour on the job in a very unconventional manner, like, I don't know if this is the right place for me.
Exactly.
Nothing against it at all, right? But this is where I'm at in my moment in time and the quality of life that I want and I need for you to get the best version of a Warren.
Of course. There's a lot of value in that, man. I think that kind of translates to our segues right into our last segment of the day, man. And one, just thank you for your time so much up into this point. But our last segment, we call it the final bite.
Okay.
And this is where I ask my guests to leave us with a final bite of whatever's on your heart, whatever's on your mind. I tell every guest this. I don't know how many people are going to watch this. It could be 1, it could be 1 million. I don't know. This is more about documenting a time between 2 brothers, 2 friends. And I think that I always like to give the opportunity for the person that I'm sitting with to be able to share their passion or what's on their heart at the time. So I just want to open up that opportunity for you, and then we'll conclude our session today.
Well, man, first of all, I appreciate the invite. I appreciate the time.
problem.
I appreciate you considering me. This is something new. This is something I've never done before. So I wanted to experience it also simply because I think this helps. I think this helps me just as much as it helps you, right? And I think it's going to be a recap of a lot of things that we've discussed already, right? Navigating. There's no blueprint to navigating life. There's no blueprint to fatherhood, being a husband, being friends, right? But having enough time, having enough awareness to meet people where they're at, listen to other people's perspectives, agree or not, try to understand those perspectives or understand why that perspective is near and dear to that individual, right? Bounce back from obstacles that present themselves to you throughout the course of your life. Reflect on being a better version of yourself every day, and knowing that you're not always going to succeed in that, right? And treat people the way that they want to be treated, right? And I hope that all those, like I'm a culmination of all those things, right? At least I like to think that I am. And I hope that that's what I'm passing on what I would consider my legacy, my children, right? I have to remind myself to wake up and be better. I'm very fortunate, though, that I have someone in my life on my side that embodies that. Like, she embodies that. Yeah. I think I'm about to take her to dinner tonight.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. This is, man, I will tell you, thank you for that final bite. And like, I think this is, like you said, it's therapy for these conversations mean so much to, I will speak for myself, but it means so much to me because like we got so much to learn from each other. And to your credit, you know, when I started this podcast, I was like, I kind of want to stay away from just the military aspect.
Yeah.
Between 48 years of military service between us, right? Like, I want to credit you and just say this is what I love about people is that we didn't just sit here and talk about the military. Most of our time that we just talked about was about something that's way more valuable than military service. I think
course.
it's life, right?
Yeah.
It's character, you know, and I really appreciate these conversations and being able to sit down with people like you because though, you know, you can learn something from me, I know I can learn something from you and we can learn something from her. And we can learn, and even you talking about your kids, how much you learn from them.
Yeah, man.
It's just, these are the life lessons that I feel like could benefit somebody in the future or currently right now. Hence why we do the Salad Bowl podcast, man.
Yeah,
So
man.
thank you for your time, man. Make sure you tell Vanessa thank you for her time too, because I know I stole you away from the family.
It's all good, man.
And your kids, man. And I look forward, you know, I'll say this on camera, but I look forward to our families having more opportunities to come together, learn about each other, whether it's for a season or many seasons, man.
Right.
I'm really glad that I ran into you in life. And thank you for spending time with me on the Salad Bowl, man.
Yeah, man. No, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. All right, to the viewers out there, make sure that you go subscribe to my YouTube page. Make sure you like this content and comment if you feel like you think that it's necessary. I just want to thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next time we have the Salad Bowl podcast. See you later.